I don't think that we can ever have peace with my family unless the truth is out there.
I commit myself to serve you all, King, country, and Commonwealth. God save the King.
They weren't supposed to speak. Not like this, not first, not alone. When William and Kate appeared at 6 p.m. sharp without King Charles, without Queen Camilla, and without the usual royal backdrop, the world stopped. No grand titles, no palace pageantry, just two voices breaking through the silence. The monarchy, William began, is not just a symbol, it's a responsibility. In that moment, history cracked. In that moment, power shifted. Because what followed was, more than a speech, it was a declaration. And behind those calm words was a storm brewing inside the palace walls. A storm that would pit son against father, crown against legacy, and memory against monarchy. This wasn't just about duty anymore, it was about who gets to define the future. Before we continue, subscribe now because this story is being buried in the UK. But here, we're telling the truth. The truth about the Diana Initiative, and how Kate Middleton just rewrote royal history with or without permission. Asterisk, asterisk, the trouble began with silence, royal silence, the kind that's louder than words. At exactly 6 p.m., the screen flickered to life. But instead of King Charles or Queen Camilla, it was William and Kate. No heralds, no palace balcony, no coat of arms, just a royals sitting in a simple room, eyes steady, voices calm, but delivering a message that would rattle every corner of Buckingham Palace. William didn't offer greetings or tradition. He didn't cite history. He cut straight to the bone. The monarchy is not just a symbol, it's a responsibility. In those few words, he didn't just step forward, he leapt past generations of protocol. Then came Kate. Collected, deliberate, poised. This isn't about tradition, she said. It's about trust. The screen faded to black, but the echo of those words didn't fade. That night, something unthinkable had happened. The younger royals didn't wait for permission. They seized the moment. The media, blindsided, scrambled for answers. Royal insiders, usually briefed days in advance, had nothing to say. There were no leaks, no whispers, no pre-approved talking points. All they had was a line from the official website. A formal announcement will be made at 6 p.m. That was it. And in the world of the royal family, that kind of blackout meant one thing. A reckoning was coming. Earlier that day, William and Kate had missed a high-profile event, raising eyebrows. Now it made sense. The announcement wasn't about absence, it was about arrival. And what they revealed next shocked even the most seasoned royal watchers. They weren't announcing a new title or charity event. They were launching a movement, a global non-profit rooted not in crown or ceremony, but in legacy, Diana's legacy. They called it the Diana Initiative, and it was unlike anything the royal family had ever sanctioned. But that was the point. It wasn't sanctioned. It wasn't managed. It was intentional and it was personal. Kate didn't just honor Diana's memory, she activated it. This is not a tribute, she said. This is a promise. No red carpets, no photographers choreographed behind velvet ropes. Kate promised to walk into the places the crown never visits: domestic shelters, broken schools, forgotten neighborhoods, and sit with survivors, listen to pain, and bring change. She wasn't asking for royal approval. She wasn't waiting for the Queen Consort's blessing. She moved, and that terrified the palace. Charles, newly navigating his reign, reportedly asked behind closed doors, what did they do? Not out of rage, but out of disbelief. Camilla, however, wasn't so diplomatic. Her calm facade cracked when asked about the initiative at a charity event. The monarchy has always served with dedication, she snapped. We don't need to invoke the past to prove it. The words sliced like glass. In a single statement, she dismissed Diana's legacy and criticized Kate's move. Social media exploded. Headlines questioned Camilla's motives. But Kate didn't fire back with venom. At the next initiative event, she stood tall and replied, "This work isn't about the past. It's about the future we build together." She didn't name names. She didn't have to. The message was clear. Tensions escalated. William, who had always played the role of the dutiful son, now stood as something else entirely, a man carving a new monarchy. Charles, behind the scenes, grew alarmed. A private meeting at Clarence House quickly turned tense. Charles accused his son of breaching royal protocol. William didn't flinch. "This isn't about protocol," he said. "It's about survival. Survival of the monarchy, of its relevance, of its soul." There was no agreement. Charles left without another word. What was once a family conversation had become a generational war. And then came the leaks. Aides close to Charles described William as impulsive, disruptive, too modern. William's team fired back. Charles was clinging to an image of the crown that no longer worked. The palace went quiet again. But the silence only fueled the fire. Outside, the people had already chosen a side. Crowds gathered near Kensington Palace, not in protest, but in support, leaving flowers, candles, and handwritten notes that read, "For Diana, for the future." Kate was being called the People's Queen. It wasn't an official title, but it was louder than any royal decree. Yet behind this movement was something darker, a strategy. The Diana Initiative wasn't just humanitarian, it was political. By invoking Diana, William and Kate connected emotionally with millions, but it also reopened old wounds, including those that Camilla had spent decades burying. The past, long sanitized by palace press teams, now stood resurrected raw, loud, and inconvenient. Insiders whispered that Camilla pushed to bring the initiative under palace control, to sanitize it, brand it, make it royal again. But William refused. "We're not doing this your way," he reportedly told aides. "We're doing it ours." And then Harry returned. Asterisk. Prince Harry's return to the UK should have been a moment of healing, but instead, it pulled the curtain back on a royal fracture too deep for protocol to mend. He had rushed back to see King Charles during his cancer battle, but the moment he landed, the air felt different. It wasn't just about family anymore, it was about positioning. When Harry called the Diana Initiative Mum's legacy in action, the public swooned. The phrase went viral. Headlines praised his emotional honesty, and for a brief moment it felt like the brothers might unite under their mother's memory. But behind closed doors, William was livid. According to palace insiders, he felt blindsided, betrayed. Harry had made a public statement about an initiative he had no part in building. "You can't just jump in now," William reportedly told him in a tense phone call, accusing his younger brother of using Diana's name to stay relevant. It wasn't just a family disagreement, it was personal history erupting on a global stage, but Harry didn't retreat. In an American interview days later, he made it crystal clear, Diana's work belongs to everyone, not just the palace. Supporters saw it as heartfelt, critics called it provocative, but William saw it as a threat. What was supposed to be a unifying movement was fast becoming a battlefield. Memes flooded social media, same mom, different fight, capturing the tragic spectacle of two brothers tearing each other apart in public over the very legacy that once held them together. For Kate, caught in the middle, the tension was suffocating. She stayed focused on the initiative, visiting shelters, hosting quiet roundtables, avoiding media traps, but the press couldn't ignore the feud. Coverage shifted from Diana's mission to the royal brother war. Even seasoned insiders admitted this was no longer a tribute, it was a takeover. And then the world learned the truth behind the William-Harry rift. Harry's memoir Spare laid it bare. In one explosive chapter, he described a physical fight. William had come to his home, furious, and the argument spiraled. According to Harry, William grabbed him by the collar, ripped his necklace, and shoved him to the floor. Harry landed on a dog bowl, which shattered beneath him, cutting his back. William allegedly challenged him to fight back, but Harry refused. The story wasn't just shocking, it was symbolic. It painted a picture of two brothers, once bonded in grief, now battling over legacy and control. And while some questioned Harry's motives, others saw a man pushed too far, especially when Harry detailed how the palace machine had worked against him and Meghan leaking stories, planting narratives, all while William and Kate stayed silent. The same silence that protected the crown had now become a weapon. Harry said it plainly. Some members have decided to get into bed with the devil to rehabilitate their image, and the moment that rehabilitation came at the cost of others, he drew the line. Insiders revealed that William and Kate had begun consolidating their power long before Harry and Meghan left. Anyone who disrupted the carefully polished image of the modern monarchy was quietly removed or discredited. Meghan was too bold, Harry was too independent. They were obstacles, and with Charles' health now in question, the urgency only intensified. William and Kate were stepping closer to the throne, but not by inheritance, by strategy. And in the process, they were reshaping the monarchy from the inside out. The shift wasn't loud, it wasn't even formal, but it was happening. Slowly, quietly, deliberately. Then came the moment that changed everything, the resurfacing of the infamous bridesmaid dress story. What was once dismissed as tabloid gossip was now being re-evaluated as something more sinister. According to royal author Tom Quinn, the fight between Kate and Meghan just before the wedding wasn't just a clash of personalities. It was the beginning of a campaign. Kate had reportedly messaged Meghan about Princess Charlotte's ill-fitting dress, but the tone, insiders said, was sharp, demanding. The confrontation left both women in tears. But here's what changed. The narrative. Instead of clearing the air, Kate went silent. She allowed the press to run the story that Meghan had made her cry, not the other way around. And when Meghan tried to correct it publicly, the palace issued no support. The silence was strategic. Meghan, isolated and pregnant, later told Oprah that the worst part wasn't the fight, it was that no one defended her. And now, with the Diana Initiative shining a light on Kate's compassion, people began asking, was this compassion selective? Or was it calculated? The truth became harder to ignore. Royal staffers speaking anonymously admitted that Meghan was left out of planning meetings, excluded from key events, and monitored in ways that Kate never was. And behind it all was the unspoken belief. There could only be one woman next to the future king. Meghan's independence, her media presence, and her refusal to submit to palace control made her a threat, not just to tradition, but to Kate's path forward. So, the machinery turned. Stories were planted, headlines dripped. With subtle venom, the smile Meghan gave to a staffer became rude. Her tears were labeled manipulative. Her silence was cold. Meanwhile, Kate was elevated, graceful, elegant, stoic. The palace didn't have to speak. It simply let the narrative run. And now, with the Diana initiative repositioning Kate as a humanitarian force, questions are rising. Did she push Meghan to clear the way, or did she simply play the game better? Either way, the result is the same. Meghan is gone. Harry is alone, and William and Kate now stand unchallenged. Yet even that comes with consequences. Charles, sidelined, confided to a friend, "I've spent my life preparing for this and now it's slipping away." Not in anger, but in quiet despair. His reign, once thought to be the era of renewal, now looked more like a placeholder. The spotlight, once fixed on him, had turned elsewhere. Not toward Camilla, not toward the legacy of the Queen, but toward the couple who refused to wait their turn. William wasn't demanding the crown, but he was making it clear he didn't need it to lead. And Kate, she had become the face of a new monarchy, not bound by rules, but by reach. With every shelter visit, every unscripted moment, she chipped away at the institution's stiffness. But in doing so, she raised a darker question. If you rewrite the system without consent, are you saving it or replacing it? By now, even loyalists inside the palace were divided. Some admired the boldness, others feared it. The monarchy had always survived by staying above politics, above drama, above the fray. But now, it was in the middle of a cold civil war, a quiet coup, and no one could stop it. Not Charles, not Camilla, not even Harry, because the people had chosen, and their loyalty didn't lie with the throne, it lay with those who looked like they cared. Asterisk, the shift was nearly complete, but it didn't happen with fireworks or ceremony. It happened in silence, in glances, in the spaces where royalty used to stand tall and now stood unsure. As William and Kate continued their push through the Diana initiative, visiting more communities, launching educational funds, announcing global partnerships, it became increasingly clear that this wasn't a campaign, it was a takeover. Not of the crown, not yet, but of the public narrative. And in the world of monarchy, the narrative is the crown. Royal aides admitted privately that nothing like this had ever happened before. William and Kate were operating outside the system, outside the schedule. The protocol, the invisible scaffolding that held the monarchy together for centuries. And yet, everything they touched seemed to work. Every post went viral. Every visit garnered praise. Even global media outlets, often skeptical of the royals, began to speak of them as the true modern leaders of the institution. But inside the palace, the atmosphere was icy. King Charles, once the symbol of royal evolution, now found himself on the defensive, his calendar thinning, his relevance fading. Camilla, who had clawed her way from scandal to soft respect, now felt overshadowed by a woman she had once dismissed. As to Careful, she wasn't just being outshined, she was being replaced in the court of public opinion. The more Kate leaned into Diana's legacy, the more Camilla became the footnote again. And she knew it. Tensions boiled over when Kate, during a televised event for the Diana initiative, referenced women who have quietly endured and still found the courage to lead. It was a graceful line but pointed, and the media read it as a subtle reminder of Diana's suffering, and by extension, Camilla's complicity. Behind closed doors, Camilla was livid. She demanded a private meeting with Charles and their senior advisors, reportedly calling Kate's rising platform reckless, unchecked, and dangerous to the unity of the crown. But Charles, increasingly worn from health treatments and fading influence, offered no solution. "Let it pass," he said. "Time will calm it." But time didn't. The initiative only grew stronger. And with each new milestone, mental health grants, survivor networks, youth leadership forums, it became harder to challenge without looking petty. William and Kate had outmaneuvered the palace with empathy, using compassion as their weapon and Diana's memory as their armor. Still, the cracks began to show. The pressure of the spotlight, the relentless comparisons to Diana, and the unspoken power struggle began to wear on Kate. In public, she remained poised. In private, sources said she was exhausted, constantly walking a tightrope between loyalty to the crown and commitment to a cause that was no longer just hers, it belonged to millions. William, too, was feeling the strain. His relationship with Charles had deteriorated. They spoke less, and when they did, it was mostly business. Charles accused William of isolating the monarchy. William accused his father of letting it die. "You protect the system," William once said in a closed-door meeting, "but you've forgotten the people." And that was the heart of it. For William and Kate, the monarchy had to evolve or collapse. For Charles and Camilla, it had to endure then if unchanged. And in that philosophical divide lay the true battleground. But the conflict wasn't just internal anymore. The public began to notice the rift. Commentators spoke openly about two royal houses, the traditionalists and the reformers. For the first time in modern royal history, people were choosing sides. Polls showed declining support for Charles, while William and Kate surged. Even abroad, especially in the US, their brand soared. Late-night hosts, who once mocked royal stiffness, now praised their authenticity. TikTok accounts turned their speeches into motivational reels. It was monarchy rebranded not as a relic, but as a movement. And then, in one unexpected twist, Meghan reappeared. At a global women's conference in New York, she took the stage and, without naming names, said there's no place for compassion if it only serves some. The crowd roared. The line was interpreted as a subtle challenge not to Kate directly, but to the entire system she now seemed to lead. Reporters pounced. Headlines reignited the Kate versus Meghan narrative, and social media again became a war zone. But Meghan wasn't seeking revenge. Insiders claimed she had finally accepted she would never be welcomed back. Her statement wasn't a ply, it was a warning. The same machinery that once crushed her could just as easily turn on Kate, and, quietly, some within the palace wondered if it already had. Because with every rise comes a reckoning. As the initiative matured, critics began to emerge, not tabloids, but thoughtful voices from within the very communities Kate had visited. Some argued that while the attention was helpful, it was still filtered through privilege. One domestic violence survivor wrote an op-ed. She sat with us, she listened. But when she left, so did the attention. Others questioned the long-term impact. Were the initiatives truly changing systems, or just moments of royal theater dressed as progress? And while those questions didn't yet dent the movement, they signaled that the honeymoon was ending. William knew this. He began shifting the language from legacy to leadership. This is not about honoring the past, he said at a climate roundtable, it's about taking responsibility for the future. The initiative began hiring more experts, building infrastructure, expanding globally. It was no longer a tribute to Diana, it was an institution of its own, and that terrified Buckingham Palace, because the monarchy had always survived by staying one thing: predictable, hierarchical, controlled. But William and Kate had introduced something new: unpredictability. They didn't ask for approval, they didn't follow scripts, they led with instinct, not instruction. And in doing so, they created a future the palace couldn't shape. In the final weeks of Charles' most recent public absence, a new rumor emerged, one that sent shockwaves through royal circles, that William and Kate, privately and quietly, had begun assembling their own advisory council. Not aides assigned by the crown, but hand-picked experts from across the world: policy strategists, non-profit leaders, social reformers. They weren't just leading initiatives anymore. They were building a monarchy without walls, one that extended beyond Britain, beyond tradition, beyond the reach of those who once held all the keys. And that, more than anything, marked the final shift. William and Kate had stopped waiting, they had stopped asking. And without a coronation, without a crown, they had become exactly what the world was watching for: the real future of the monarchy. Not because of birthright, but because of boldness. Not because of lineage, but because of leadership. The monarchy, as we knew it, was already gone, and in its place stood a new reality, one shaped by legacy, yes, but led by choice. A monarchy that no longer belonged to the palace but to the people. Asterisk.